I wasn't looking for anything. Honestly, that's what I keep telling myself when I replay that moment in my head. All I needed was the brown folder with my tax paperwork, W-2s, donation slips, all the clutter I had dumped in the back seat of Sarah's car 2 weeks ago when we were running late to her niece's birthday. Her sedan was parked crooked in the driveway like she always left it, nose first, wheels angled like she was too distracted to straighten out. When I opened the door, I didn't expect anything. Just the usual mess, reusable shopping bags, stray receipts, maybe an empty LaCroix can. But what I got instead was a punch of something strange. A scent. Cologne. Not mine. It was fresh too. Not stale like old gym clothes or that weird smell cars pick up over time. This was pungent, deliberate, and unfamiliar, one of those darker, leathery scents with vanilla or something musky beneath it. I froze, hands still on the door, nose twitching in confusion. I leaned in, then back out, thinking maybe I imagined it. But no. It was there. Then I saw the napkin, wedged awkwardly between the center console and the passenger seat. White, creased. My name wasn't on it, but the logo jumped out, a place called Café Monarch. Cute, fancy script. Gold foil lettering. Not a fast food joint, not even a place I recognized. Certainly not anywhere Sarah and I had ever been together. I picked it up. On the underside, scribbled in pen, Tuesday, 2 p.m., smiley face and all. That was the part that caught me off guard more than anything. The casual in asterisk Macy of it. Like an inside joke I wasn't part of. I didn't even realize I was holding my breath until I let it out in a slow, shaky exhale. Still, I didn't panic. Not yet. I told myself it was probably nothing. Maybe it belonged to a coworker. Maybe someone borrowed her car. That happens, right? Logical explanations. That's where my brain went first, the way you try to keep a cracked windshield from splintering all the way across. Later that night, I brought it up while she was standing in the kitchen, arms elbow-deep in grocery bags. "Hey," I said, keeping my tone light like it was barely even a thing. "There was this cologne smell in your car. Strong stuff. You switch up your perfume." She glanced up for half a second before returning to the fridge. "Oh yeah, that's probably Brian. He spilled coffee in his car again, so I let him take mine for lunch yesterday." Brian. I'd met him once, maybe twice, at one of her work dinners. Tall guy, loud voice. Married. I didn't remember her ever mentioning they were close enough to swap cars, but I nodded anyway. "That's generous of you." She shrugged. "He's hopeless. Would probably light his car on fire if he tried to clean it himself." I stood there a moment, watching her unload oat milk and spinach into the fridge like it was just another Tuesday night. My hand slid into my pocket and closed around the napkin. I hadn't planned on showing it to her, but something about her tone, just a little too quick, a little too rehearsed, made me pull it out and hold it up. "What about this?" I found it on the passenger side. Her reaction was surgical. She didn't flinch. Just took a glance and said, "Oh, that's probably his too. He's always scribbling reminders on junk like that. You know how sales guys are, caffeine and sticky notes." She didn't ask why I was digging through her car or why I was asking these questions. She just kept moving, sealing a bag of almonds with that sharp metallic clip and tossing it into the pantry like we were talking about the weather. That night, she packed a small duffel and told me she'd be leaving early the next morning for her team-building retreat in Lakeview. Said it was just a couple of days. Corporate bonding. That kind of thing. I asked if she was taking her own car or carpooling. She said her own and kissed me on the cheek with a smile that felt more like punctuation than affection. "You'll be okay without me," she teased. "Of course," I said, even though something already felt lopsided. After she left, I sat in the living room staring at the blank TV screen for nearly an hour, holding my coffee until it turned cold. My fingers tapped the ceramic like they were waiting for something, a text, a clue, maybe just time to pass. Her scent still lingered in the hall. Not perfume. Fabric softener. She always used the lavender one. I tried to focus on other things. Dishes, work emails, feeding the cat. But the questions kept pulling at my thoughts like threads on a sweater. Why would Brian borrow her car? Why scribble a time and date on a napkin, and why leave it behind? And the cologne. That wasn't an accident. That was personal. I replayed her expression over and over, that blank, practiced calm. Sarah had always been good at that. Reading a room. Adjusting. She was the kind of person who could lie and still keep eye contact. I used to admire that about her. Thought it meant she was in control. Now it felt like a mask. And yet I didn't accuse her. Not that night. Not the next. Instead, I waited. Waited through her retreat, during which she barely texted. Just generic updates like, "Long day. Exhausted. Love you," and "No signal out here, talk soon." I responded with a thumbs up emoji once. She didn't reply. By the time she came back Sunday evening, it was almost like nothing had happened. She tossed her duffel in the laundry room, kissed me again, same peck, same punctuation, and asked if I wanted Thai or pizza for dinner. I said pizza. She ordered Thai. I didn't bring up the napkin again. Didn't ask about Brian. Didn't mention the scent that still lingered in the car when I took it to get gas on Monday. Instead, I said nothing. But something inside me had shifted. Subtle but irreversible, like the moment you realize the crack in the ceiling isn't just paint. It's structural. And maybe, just maybe, it's been spreading for a while. It started like a whisper, that voice in the back of my mind replaying things I had brushed off for months. Quiet moments that once felt like quirks now pulsed with significance. Like the way Sarah had started locking her phone, not just with a fingerprint but a whole new passcode she never told me. Or how she'd tilt the screen away when a notification came in, nothing major, just slight enough to not seem deliberate. I had chalked it up to work confidentiality. Everyone at her company was on edge since the merger. But now those details felt radioactive. 3 days after she returned from the so-called retreat, I was lying on our couch, the living room bathed in the blue light of the muted TV. A late-night documentary flickered, soundless, while I stared at the ceiling, playing detective in my own life. My thoughts spiraled, not in frantic panic, but with a kind of grim determination. She had changed. That part was undeniable. It wasn't loud or obvious, no screaming fights or disappearing acts. It was quieter. More surgical. Like she had systematically begged *N to peel herself away from me piece by piece, layer by layer, without ever slamming the door. I remembered how she had started wearing that one set of lingerie, the wine-colored one with lace along the straps. She used to save it for anniversaries or vacations. Now she wore it under business blazers like armor. I had noticed it once when she was changing for bed and casually asked if it was new. She'd shrugged and said she liked how it made her feel. That was it. Then there were the new perfumes. Stronger, bolder. The kind that lingered in the bedroom even after she left for work. The kind I wasn't used to smelling on her skin. I used to buy her favorites, citrus, subtle, warm, because I loved the way they blended with her natural scent. These new ones felt like a barrier, something she wore for someone else. It wasn't just scent or lingerie or phone habits, though. It was her tone. Cold. Measured. Conversations between us started to feel like job interviews. She'd ask how my day was, nodding politely, but her eyes never left the screen. Even when I told her about quitting my job to go full-time freelance, something that had once been a shared dream, her response was flat. That's good, she had said, without even pausing her typing. Just make sure you're covered on health insurance. That was it. No questions. No excitement. No curiosity. I remember sitting across from her that night, waiting for something, anything, to suggest she still cared. Instead, she went back to her email, and I sat there wondering if I had imagined the whole conversation. It wasn't even that she disapproved. It was that she didn't react at all. Like I was a roommate making an announcement about redoing the sink. I replayed other scenes. How she used to call me during lunch breaks just to hear my voice. That had stopped. She claimed she was swamped. Her calendar, once full of shared events and dinner plans, had turned into a battlefield of client calls, working dinners, and yoga classes I wasn't invited to. Even her social media shifted. Fewer couple photos. More group *TS, all of them curated like magazine spreads. If I made a comment on one, she'd reply with an emoji. Not words. Emojis. Once, that would have made me laugh. Now it felt like a firewall. That night on the couch, I opened the Notes app on my phone and started writing things down. Not because I needed proof, but because I needed to convince myself I wasn't losing it. I listed the lingerie, the perfume, the napkin, the cologne, the retreat, the passwords, the tone shift, the dinner she canceled last minute, claiming she had a migraine only to come home late with eyeliner still perfectly intact. I wasn't just grasping for straws anymore. I was documenting a pattern. It was like assembling a puzzle, one where the picture kept changing as I built it. I'd spent years thinking our love was rooted in shared history, inside jokes, weekend rituals, late-night walks. But now those things felt like nostalgia I was clinging to, not evidence of a bond that still existed. She, on the other hand, seemed to live forward, not backward. And in her new future, I was more of a static feature, dependable, unobtrusive, easily edited out. The kicker came 2 days later. She left her Apple Watch charging in the kitchen. Harmless enough, except a message popped up. From someone named M. Just the letter. No emoji, no full name. Just M. I never opened the message. Didn't need to. What caught me was the timestamp, 1:17 a.m. The message itself was just a preview. I wish you hadn't left so quickly. That's when something in me broke. Not rage. Not sadness. Just a kind of clarity. I sat in the dark again that night, thinking about how strange it felt to live with someone and feel lonelier than I did when I lived alone. She moved through the house like a ghost, present but unreachable. We'd sleep in the same bed but feel oceans apart. She'd fall asleep with her back turned to me, her phone under the pillow as I stared at the ceiling like a man waiting for an earthquake to hit. And I realized something painful. It wasn't just that she might be seeing someone else. It was that she already had one foot out the door, emotionally if not physically. When did I become an accessory in my own marriage? It's funny how memory works when you start to suspect betrayal. Your brain becomes a courtroom and everything is suddenly evidence. The time she refused to hold my hand in the parking lot, too sweaty. The way she shut the door when she took calls. The time she turned her face when I leaned in for a kiss, claiming she had a cold. The cold never came. I used to think that kind of suspicion was toxic. Paranoia. But now it felt like survival. Still, I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because deep down, I needed to know, was I losing her, or had I already lost her? I didn't plan to follow her that night. It wasn't like I had some grand scheme. If anything, it started because I couldn't sit in the house anymore, staring at her empty side of the bed while she claimed to be working late at the gym. That had become her go-to excuse lately: fitness classes, cardio, yoga. I'd never known her to be so passionate about stair machines. It was around 6:40 p.m. when she left, gym bag slung over her shoulder, dressed in those black leggings and a zip-up hoodie I'd seen a dozen times. She kissed me on the cheek like usual, robotic and quick, and said, "Don't wait up, I might stay for the late spin class." I nodded, smiled, played my part. The moment the front door shut, I grabbed my keys. I didn't tail her like some movie spy. I just stayed back enough to keep her in sight. It wasn't even hard. Sarah had always been a cautious but predictable driver. She took the main road toward the rec center, and for a moment I started doubting myself. Maybe she really was just going to work out. Maybe I was the one unraveling. But then she didn't turn into the gym parking lot. She drove past it slowly, deliberately, like someone who didn't want to make a wrong move. I followed at a distance, heart pounding in my throat, hands gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles went white. She took a left, then another, winding her way downtown. It was nearing 7 o'clock when she pulled into a side street lined with old brick buildings, the kind you'd expect to see repurposed into law offices or therapy practices. She parked outside a building with a narrow black awning and the number 27 painted in fading gold letters near the door. No signs. No businesses listed. Just the number. I parked half a block down and K** led my engine, leaning slightly forward, just enough to see but not be seen. My heart hammered with each passing minute. The sidewalk was quiet. No foot traffic. A flickering street lamp made the whole block feel like it was stuck in another decade. Then I saw him. He was tall, wearing a dark overcoat despite the mild weather. Clean-shaven. Confident. He exited the building casually, looking down the street before checking his phone. A few seconds later, Sarah appeared behind him. Her hair was a little messy, not dramatically, but enough that I noticed. She had taken off the hoodie, revealing the wine-colored blouse she'd left the house in the day before, now slightly wrinkled. They didn't speak, not visibly. Just stood there for a second. Then he reached forward and without hesitation, she leaned in. The kiss was brief. Not passionate, not reckless. But intentional. Familiar. That was the worst part. It wasn't a spur-of-the-moment mistake. It wasn't two people caught in something new and overwhelming. It was routine. It was practiced. And somehow that made it feel more real than anything else. I didn't move. Didn't even breathe. I watched as they separated, said something I couldn't hear, and went their separate ways. She got into her car. He walked around the corner. The whole thing took less than 2 minutes. But in those 2 minutes, my entire marriage fell apart. I didn't confront her. I didn't even follow her home. Instead, I waited until I knew she'd be back, until her car was safely in the driveway, until I heard her shower running upstairs, and then I went into our bedroom and started packing. I didn't scream. Didn't cry. I just moved. A part of me felt like I was watching myself from above, calmly folding her clothes, placing her favorite mugs and makeup into boxes like I was handling someone else's memories. I didn't break anything. Didn't go through her phone or look for more proof. I already had what I needed. More than enough. The next morning, I left the boxes by the front door. When she came downstairs, her face was flushed from sleep, her hair damp. She blinked at the sight of them. "What's this?" she asked, trying to keep her voice light. "You should stay at your sister's," I said. "At least for a few days." She didn't ask why. She knew. There was a long silence, the kind that stretches and strains the air around you. She looked like she wanted to say something, maybe explain, maybe lie, but in the end, she just nodded. No tears. No drama. She gathered a few things, took the boxes, and left. I stood in the doorway long after her car disappeared. Somewhere inside me, I had always known. But seeing her with him, that was something else. That image, her leaning into his kiss, it branded itself into my memory like a scar. And it didn't burn with rage or heartbreak. It settled like cold cement in my chest. Later that evening, I sat on our back porch with a beer in hand and the TV left on inside. The hum of a baseball game filled the silence. I stared at the sky, half expecting to feel relief. I didn't. I felt empty. Like someone had hit reset on my life but forgot to give me a new script. I told myself this was the end of something. But part of me knew it wasn't. Not yet. Because nothing about that building, that unmarked 27 with its fading numbers and silence, felt like a place for romance. It felt like a place for secrets. And I wasn't ready to stop asking questions. Not yet. 2 days after Sarah left, I went back to the building. I couldn't stop thinking about it, that door marked 27, the way she looked stepping out of it, the strange mix of secrecy and routine. It wasn't just about the kiss anymore. That kiss had unlocked something deeper. It had been the crack, but the foundation underneath felt rotten. I had to know what was underneath it all. Not for revenge. Not even for closure. I just needed the truth. When I pulled up, the block was empty again. Same quiet sidewalk. Same flickering streetlight. But this time, a printed paper sign had been taped to the door. Office closed until further notice. Please contact management for access. No company name. No contact info. Just a number, 405 something. I took a picture of the sign and stepped back. The blinds behind the windows had been drawn tight as if someone wanted the place to vanish overnight. I sat in my car for 20 minutes watching. Nothing. No comings and goings, no lights inside, no movement. Just silence. I pulled up Google and searched the address. It was registered under a Shell LLC linked to a marketing firm called EchoSpan. I had never heard of it. Its website was sleek and vague, all buzzwords and zero specifics. Targeted campaigns. Influencer engagement. Deep dive analytics. The contact page only had a generic email and a P.O. box. No staff listed. No social media presence. Nothing that screamed legitimate. Sarah had mentioned work changes over the past few months, but now it felt different. She worked in logistics. Inventory flow, shipping timelines, B2B vendor management. But lately, she'd started using phrases like client segmentation, brand targeting, and consumer behavior mapping, terms I used to hear in IT briefings when I worked security for her company's infrastructure branch. Back then, I helped vet third-party vendors for compliance. I knew how data moved through those systems. I knew how fragile it all was, how easy it was for someone with the right credentials to walk sensitive files right out the digital front door. At the time, it never occurred to me Sarah might be near any of that. Now, it felt like I'd missed something enormous. I drove home with the kind of unease that curls up in your ribs and makes it hard to breathe. The house was quiet. She'd taken more than just clothes. Her favorite records were gone. Some photos. 2 of her leather-bound journals. The absence was loud, like she'd vacuumed out the past 5 years from every corner. But her work laptop? That was still in the closet. I knew I shouldn't. I knew the boundary I was about to cross, but I also knew that she'd crossed worse. It took me 5 minutes to guess her new password, a combination of our cat's name and the year we got married. I expected to find personal emails or maybe some flirty messages confirming what I'd already seen. But instead, I found folders. Password-protected zip files. Encrypted attachments. Word documents with vague titles like Client Tier 3, JRD Internal, and Vendor Access Map Final. At least 4 of those files referenced a database I helped build when I worked there, one that housed customer information, shipping patterns, and vendor costs. I felt sick. The kind of sick that's not just emotional. It was professional. Legal. Federal even. My name was still listed in some of those internal logs, old change logs that hadn't been wiped. If someone pulled those threads, they could link me to access I hadn't used in over a year. And if Sarah had used our home network to move or sync these files, I might already be caught in the crossfire. I closed the laptop and sat there, heart racing. This wasn't about some affair anymore. This wasn't just about another man. This was something else. Something deliberate. Bigger. I called Kate. She's my sister. 6 years older. Works in corporate risk and digital security at a firm that handles high-profile breach investigations. I didn't tell her everything, not at first. Just that something weird was going on with Sarah's work, that I'd seen some things I didn't fully understand. She asked me to send *TS, so I did, redacting what I could but keeping enough detail to make it real. She called back 20 minutes later. Okay, she said, her tone suddenly clipped and alert. This is serious. Some of those names, the vendor tags, they match an ongoing case. Internal security flagged a leak from a logistics chain client 2 weeks ago. They're tracing the breach. Your *TS matched the structure. What does that mean? It means Sarah might be part of something bigger. Whether she knows it or not. She told me not to open any more files. Not to delete anything. She said she'd escalate the evidence through internal channels quietly under a preliminary inquiry. Nothing would move fast. No arrests, no subpoenas. Not unless someone got sloppy. Whatever you do, she added, don't confront Sarah yet. If she's being manipulated or worse, willingly involved, we need to know which side of that line she's standing on. I thanked her. Hung up. Sat there in the dark with that old laptop humming beside me, a low mechanical whir that sounded like a time bomb. The next morning, I woke up to a notification. Someone had attempted to log into my old work account using a VPN out of Minneapolis, the same region Sarah's company server routed through. I hadn't used that account in over a year. The only person who had the backup credentials? Sarah. From when we used to help each other troubleshoot at night. She was using me. My access. My old logins. Through our shared network. Through her home. And that's when the real betrayal hit. The man in the overcoat? He wasn't just her affair. He was part of the operation. Maybe the recruiter. Maybe the handler. I didn't know. But I knew he wasn't some bar hookup. He was calculated. Familiar. Sarah was laundering something through our marriage, not money but trust. She wrapped herself in our routines while feeding data out through the back door, pretending it was just a love affair. But it wasn't just about love anymore. It was about leverage. And I wasn't going to be the collateral damage. It was just after 11 p.m. when I drove back to the building. 27, the place that had started everything. There was no reason to go back. At least, not one that made sense to anyone else. The logical part of me said I had what I needed, confirmation of the affair, evidence of the breach, a sister working channels behind the scenes. But logic didn't account for the weight pressing down on my chest every night. The feeling that this story, my story, still had missing pages. So I sat in my car across the street with the engine off, lights dimmed, watching. It was cold. A quiet kind of cold, the kind that settles into your ears and muffles everything around you. The block was dead. Office windows dark. Street lamps buzzing faintly. At 11:32, the side door opened. He stepped out, the man in the overcoat. No jacket this time. Just a hoodie under a navy blazer, sleeves pushed up, like he had just left a casual meeting that didn't quite go the way he wanted. He carried a bag, but not the kind you'd expect. It was a plain gym duffel. Black. Unlabeled. Worn at the seams. He didn't see me. He headed toward the alley, ducked past a dumpster, and began tossing something into a trash bin, cardboard, mostly. But then he paused, pulled out his phone, and started talking. I cracked the car window just enough to hear his voice carry across the stillness. Yeah, I told her it's too hot now. The IT guy started sniffing around. She got spooked. A pause. Muffled reply. I don't know, he said. She was supposed to send the vendor file, but now she's hesitating. Says someone's been asking questions. Might be her ex-guy used to work security. I think he's starting to connect things. My breath hitched. That was me. He was talking about me. She said she's out, he continued. Wants to back out completely. Threatened to go to HR if we pushed. Told her that wasn't an option. Not anymore. Another pause. Look, I'll keep her on a leash. Worst case, I clean it up. She disappears for a while, reboots her life somewhere. I didn't hear the rest. I slid the window shut and sat back, heart pounding so hard it rattled the air in my chest. My fingers shook as I unlocked my phone and hit record, but by then he was already walking back toward the building, muttering something I couldn't catch. The door clicked behind him and the street went quiet again. I had never felt more alert or more unsure of what to do. This wasn't just about Sarah making bad choices anymore. This wasn't about betrayal. It was about consequences. About safety. About leverage, blackmail, disappearance. The next morning I called Kate. Say that again, she said after I relayed everything. He said she wanted out. That she tried to back off. That she threatened HR. Which means she's scared, Kate said, voice tight. She knows she's in too deep. And they know it too. Should I confront her? I asked. No. Absolutely not. If she's trying to get out, confronting her could corner her. Or worse, push her back toward them. I don't even know who them is. You don't need to, she said. Not yet. That evening, I didn't go home. I drove to the lake instead, parked by the water, and stared at the horizon while my phone buzzed with messages I ignored. One from Sarah's number, unread. One from a blocked ID, I didn't even touch it. By now, I knew I was in something messy. Deep. Industrial espionage deep. And Sarah? She wasn't the architect. She was the bridge. The access point. Probably recruited over drinks and flattery, convinced she was doing nothing serious, maybe just feeding harmless info to a marketing firm. But now she wanted out. And someone wasn't letting go. I thought back to the man's words. Worst case, I clean it up. I didn't know what that meant, but I didn't like how it felt. The next day, I drove to her office parking lot. Sat across from the building in a nondescript coffee shop with a view of the elevators. I didn't have a plan, just wanted to see her. To confirm she was okay. That she was still showing up. At 8:47 a.m. she walked in. Hair in a low bun. No makeup. Same gray coat she used to wear when she was tired. She looked over her shoulder twice before entering. Eye scanning. Face pale. She was scared. Later that night, a private number called again. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in me knew it was her. Hello? Silence for a beat. Then, don't say my name. Her voice was low. Measured. Careful. I can't talk long, she said. They're monitoring. My phone. My laptop. Everything. I swallowed. Are you okay? Another pause. I don't know. Tell me what's happening. She exhaled, shaky and sharp. It wasn't supposed to be like this. It started with data pulls. Internal vendor maps. Stuff we'd worked on together before. I thought it was harmless, just research. But then it became customer lists. Contacts. Access logs. And I realized they weren't who they said they were. Why didn't you stop? I tried. But once they had my passwords, it was over. They threatened to expose me. To you. To my company. Then they threatened worse. What's worse? She went quiet. I can't say, she whispered finally. But I've been cooperating with internal investigators. Quietly. Feeding them back info. They're planning to move soon. But I need to disappear. Disappear? They're helping me vanish. New identity. Protection. Witness programs. My hands went numb. I didn't want to drag you into this, she said. You weren't supposed to be part of the fallout. You used my accounts, Sarah. My network. You made me part of it. I know. Her voice broke. I know I did. And I'll live with that. Silence stretched again. I just needed you to know I didn't choose him over you, she said. It wasn't about love. It was about survival. I wanted to scream. To demand she come clean. But I couldn't. Instead, I said, where are you now? I can't say. Then why call me? She paused again. I could hear wind, distant cars, maybe a highway in the background. Because this is the last time, she said. I won't be able to reach out after this. They'll move me soon. I don't know where. And then she hung up. No goodbye. No apology. Just silence. I stared at my phone, screen dark, wondering what part of this was real and what was just another story from someone who knew how to lie too well.